This is the TH80 Pro from Epomaker. This is also my third keyboard in a month. I don't have any sponsors, I don't make a lot of money, although I am open to sponsors. Hit me up in my business email on my abouts page. Anyway, why am I plowing through my wallet as if I make 6 figures a day? So, remember that Keychron Q6 that I made a video about and it's actually doing really well? Well, she's dead. I attempted the PE foam mod where you lay a sheet of PE foam on top of the PCB to make the keys sound a bit more poppy. Well, I had assumed the foam was non-conductive since I already had put a bit of it in my Red Dragon 60% keyboard. So I slapped it on, put the switches on, plugged it in, and then nothing happened. The LEDs on the daughter board lights up, but nothing on the main PCB. So it turns out it is conductive, and I just decided to get a replacement, albeit a bit of a downgrade. With the bummer news out of the way, this is the not an expert whatsoever review and unreasonably expensive build of the TH80 Pro. To start off, this is a 75% custom mechanical keyboard from Epomaker. I decided to get this size rather than a full size like the Q6 because I did occasionally run out of mouse space, not just when gaming but also when normally using it. This is the bare bones kit, which was 65 bucks on Amazon. Inside the box is the keyboard, a switch and keycap puller combo thing that is a great touch, and a very nice braided USB-C to A cable. I probably would have liked a USB-C to C cable with a C to A adapter like even the Red Dragon K530 has one, but either way, USB-C is always superior to micro USB. The body is made of ABS plastic and is quite lightweight. It's got a steel plate with a foam damper between it and the PCB. It has south-facing switches and RGB, which means you can use cherry profile keycaps without any interference. That is also one of the few reasons I got this as well. The stabilizers do seem to be lubed, but we shall see if they are done well. The hole for the spacebar is filled with what looks and feels like a rubber grommet, presumably to reduce the hollowness of such a large key, which is a great touch. Unlike the previous keyboards I have reviewed, this one has a white plate which softens the RGB and makes it glow a bit. And speaking of RGB, it has 18 different modes you can switch between, I think. I can't count, and not 16.8 million like their website says. The only thing I'm meh on is that there are only 5 brightness modes, but oh well. You can actually see the lighting through the plastic housing since it's quite thin. I don't know if light would penetrate the black housing, but it definitely does for the white one. It has flippy feet that can adjust the height to 3 different levels, including completely down, and those holes are where the screws are hiding that keep the thing together. The on-off switch is at the bottom, and there's a little compartment where you can slot the wireless dongle in. Kinda being nitpicky, but I think I would have liked it if they had color matched the dongle white instead of generic black, but I think it's totally fine as you won't really be seeing that thing anyway. Speaking of wireless, this can be used wired with the USB-C cable, 2.4 GHz wireless with the dongle, and by Bluetooth to 3 different devices. And to be used wirelessly, it obviously needs a battery, but I have no idea about the capacity. The listing for the bare bones kit says 3800 mAh, the fully built one says 4000 mAh, and then the manual says 3800 mAh for the keyboard, 3000 mAh for the bare bones kit. I'm sorry, but what does that even mean? I can't tell if the people in charge of creating the literature and listings are just incompetent or they actually use different batteries for essentially an identical product. So I have no idea how big the battery is, just that it is at least 3000 mAh. Knob. You can download an accompanying software where you can reassign keys, create macros, or change the lighting. It's not polished or as responsive as QMK/VIA, but it's always nice to have at least something you can customize with. So with the features out of the way, let's dive right into the build. Since this is the replacement for my Q6, I will simply just be using the same switches and keycaps as it. And these are the C3 Equals and the Key Company 62-gram Tangerine switches. These are often regarded as some of the smoothest linear switches due to them being factory lubed and using a slippery plastic. So let's go ahead and plant these seeds and come back in a little bit. A few minutes later, the switches are fully grown to the board. Since they have a dark orange housing, the RGB will be tinted very red. If you like Rainbow Vomit, you might not actually like the red tint, but for my purposes, it's perfectly fine as I really only use a static orange or red backlighting. The keycaps are also the same as the Q6 and are the PBTFans twist by KBDFans. These are chair profile keeps of a decent thickness. I did have a few keycap sets in mind that would have looked great on this board, but I just didn't want to spend any more money than I already have this past month. Anyway, with a wave of my finger and flick of my finger, the caps are on, and it's pretty ugly. I don't know what it is, but it makes me think of like when you accidentally drop something in a glass of milk and then you take it out and it's all kind of milky and gross and the thing smells like milk for a week. Or like when someone pukes after drinking milk and blueberries. Anyways, I think these keycaps would have definitely looked better on a gray or some other darker complementary color, but I'm dumb and decided to get the white version of the keyboard to change things up instead of just getting the black. And I'm just using these keycaps because I already had these and they were $100. I also wish I could actually use blue or proper white RGB, but these switches just feel too nice that I don't want to give up, and I also just don't want to buy more stuff. One thing I am certain that isn't ugly is that like and subscribe button. It's free, plus I won't do the sound test if you don't subscribe right now. Okay, you did it? Alright, let's take a listen to the stock keyboard with the Tangies. There are virtually no scratchy sounds other than the stabilizers because the switches are great, but it definitely sounds hollow and plasticky. The stabilizers are pretty good overall, but still sound a bit rattly, especially the spacebar. The stems are actually pre-cut, or rather manufactured to not have those little legs that people often cut off, which is a nice touch. With an idea of what the bassline sounds like, let's take it apart and start modding it, this time without frying anything. To take this thing apart, you first remove the 2 screws under the flippy feet. Then there are 8 clips holding the bottom and the top cases together. After we take them off, after we take up the clips, we can now see what's inside. There's one layer of foam, couple millimeters thick, but under, as we expected, is very hollow other than the battery. This keyboard is advertised as having a gasket-like mount, and it's true, I guess. They're not really gaskets, but there are these rubber gasket-ish strips that don't really have any give whatsoever. Anyway, to fill in the gaps, I cut up some of the packing foam with the Red Dragon kit I got in a previous video so they fit in the rectangles. The half the spacebar is on needed half thickness foam since the board wouldn't close otherwise. I made sure I didn't cover the hole for the on-off switch on the bottom with the foam. This is a very simple mod that should theoretically take care of the hollowness. After that is done, you know what's next. Tape. This is the Tape or Tempest mod, where you put 2 to 3 layers of tape on the bottom of the PCB, which makes it sound a bit fuller and deeper. I try to avoid all the screws and connectors so I don't have to redo the whole thing when I need to mess with the plate or PCB in the future. This is it's like simultaneously beautiful and grotesque. After I recorded everything, I actually experimented with replacing the hard rubber gaskets with soft foam gaskets that were extras that came with the Keychron Q6. I did it off camera and it kind of works, but I didn't record anything just because I really don't want to take this thing apart again. Since the spacebar sounded super hollow and rattly and it was really bugging me, I replaced the switch with a single Gateron Milky Yellow Cat B2, which is a linear switch that feels slightly heavier than the Tangies, so it will dampen the rattle out a bit. With the mods done, we can now close her back up. The bottom is bowing a wee bit because of the added foam, but is still usable and lays down flat. I don't have switch loop or any motivation to mod or replace the stabilizers, but these feel okay, so this will absolutely do for now. Using it for a bit so far, I really do like this thing. It's pretty much as compact as the 60% width-wise, but it includes the function keys, arrow keys, and the delete key. If you do any writing or any work on any creative software, you know how convenient and important having a dedicated delete key is. I'll kind of spoil the sound with the mods, but it's a bit difficult to notice the difference based on what the mic picked up. It's really just the bottoming out sounds a bit more solid, and it feels soft thanks to the proper gaskets. The plastic case also has a drastically different feel than typing on a full aluminum keyboard like the Keychron Q6. The Q6 felt like I was typing on marble, like it felt super solid and rigid, and the bottoming out was much fuller and crispier. This one may be because the foam is insufficient, but it still sounds a bit hollow and it feels, well, like it's plastic. I can't really come up with an analogy better than this user on Reddit who said it's like knocking on a steel door compared to a wooden door. But even with my limited knowledge of keyboards, I still think this is a great budget keyboard. You probably shouldn't be spending about $240 on yours though, like the total of this specific keyboard. I just happen to have these switches and keycaps already. You can absolutely just get the fully built TH80 Pro for $90, and it comes with Gatoron Pro switches, which are prelude from factory, as well as the decent looking die sub keycaps. Although the overall quality isn't as good or feel as premium as say the Keychron Q series with an all CNC aluminum body and weighing as much as a full car, it's still a solid board that can still sound and feel good with a few super cheap mods for under $100. So that was the Epomaker TH80 Pro. The sound with the mods will be at the very end. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy this review. If you want to see me review the expensive keyboard that I recently fried and blew up, click the icon in the top right or the link in the description. Like and subscribe, stay safe, don't die. See ya.